Good evening and welcome to another live stream. So thank you very much for taking the time to be with me this evening. We've got an hour dedicated to talking about all things American. So I see Ozzy remarks, it's like the Stephen Nolan show now, David, with intro. Ozzy, how dare you? You're blocked in perpetuity. But anyway, look, thank you very much for being here. I see you joining. And as you join, I just want you to, we're going to have an hour talking about all things America. And I can see our special guest is just joining us. So just as we, before we start, I need you to do a couple of things for me. So as we go through this, if you like it, give it a thumbs up on Facebook, share it. If it's on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. It's important that you do those things, folks. And of course, give the thumbs up if you like it. That lets the algorithms know that you like us, apparently. You can even give us a thumbs down if you want. I don't care, but I mean, down to you. However, thumbs up are preferred. And you can find me, by the way, in these censorous times on Gab. You can find me over in Gab, which is still up and running. And also on the other channels, Bitchute, on Rumble, do a little podcast on Anchor FM. You can listen to those things if you want. Also, breaking news, I'm told that Parler will be back up in the next couple of days. Finally, of course, on YouTube, you can find me on David Vance, and you can find me on Alt News Media. So I am everywhere, apparently. Also, by the way, yeah, I'm on Facebook. If you want to subscribe to me as David Vance, just become my friend on the hateful Facebook channel. Shh, did I say that? And obviously on Alt News Media Facebook as well. I think that's pretty much the lot. And last but not least, make sure you subscribe, support me by making a small donation if you can over at altnewsmedia.net/donate. Okay, that's the business end of things out of the way. So let me introduce, I'm really pleased. As I say, we're going to talk about America, and I've got a wonderful guest. I'm really pleased to, I'm going to introduce her in a second. You may remember her with me. Her name is Purnima Nath, one of my favorite American patriots, also a Hindu person who, in my mind, exemplifies all the best aspects of America. So with having said that, can I please bring on, yes, well, before actually we get to Purnima, let's just set things up. You will see that we had, Purnima, I think, has been recently shadow banned by Twitter. And you'll have to raise your game, Purnima, because until you've been totally banned, you've not really made it on Twitter, you know. So join me in obscurity of Twitter. Anyway, can we please bring on my favorite guest here, Purnima Nath. Purnima, you're very welcome. Now, first up, you need to get your volume settings sorted out, Purnima, because we need to hear you. So, testing. Can't hear Purnima at the moment. It has to be at Purnima's end. So make sure you haven't accidentally muted yourself, Purnima.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you loud and clear. Great to see you. Great to have you with us.
Namaskar, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, David.
My pleasure. You know, it seems a long time ago, but it's not that long ago when we spoke last, and that was in the run-up to the U.S. presidential election. Yes. And my goodness, Purnima, so much has happened since then. And I wanted to be able to talk and to have all my people following me here to hear basically from, inside the lion's den, all the stuff that's going on. Now, we have to be careful before we start, Purnima, and I know we messaged earlier with this, we have to be careful because our dear friends at Facebook and YouTube don't want to hear people talking about anything other than the election was full and fair. And so with that caveat, I probably like yourself, Purnima, I was profoundly depressed in the aftermath of the election because it seemed a bit odd. But I'll tell you what, if that was then, I can't believe what's happened in the States. since the big tech censorship, the shutdown, all the stuff that's gone on. So maybe just to start with, talk us through how you see things have been over the past 8 weeks or so.
David, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you all the time. And I think it's crucial for all of us to understand exactly what is happening. I'll start with the point you mentioned in terms of shutting down our voices. And it's critical for us to understand why it is important for us to know that this is happening. And this is happening in every countries I have visited, where the state media, state agencies control voices. I have recently traveled to Hong Kong, similar situations. Nobody talks about it. I'm an Indian American, an India-born American citizen. I have seen what communism and ultra leftist, radical leftist communist party can do to you. Literally, I can tell you examples when my father would tell, don't say a word, even wall has ears. And I would brush him off, saying that if we can't talk, then how are we going to change? How are we going to do any reforms? And he is absolutely right. And that's the situation today we are facing in the oldest democracy in the world. And it's saddest point that we have come to this level of silencing and suppressing. Obviously, big tech here in the country, where they got tremendous amount of leverage and freedom, that's the same country they abused. And I cannot go further than that to tell you how disappointed I am in this democratic country. We lost it already.
Well, yeah. Well, there's so much to talk. Let's unpack a lot of that. But first of all, I wonder, I think we might have a tweet. I mean, one of the most shocking things of 2021, and we're only 12 days into it, by the way, was whenever we all woke up and we saw this appear on Twitter. So can we please bring up the tweet that where Twitter announced that they, hopefully we can find it, that they were essentially blocking the United States president. So don't know if we have it or not. Nope, don't seem to have it. Never mind. You know the one I'm talking about, Purnima. We saw the United States president taken down by a US headquartered company. And what does that even say about the state, the health of democracy, if an elected sitting president can be taken down on social media?
Yeah, in some of the countries like China, Iran, these are the same companies like Google and WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter are banned. Those are the countries where the leadership can ban this big tech, but in the same country here where they are headquartered and they can ban the president of the country. You can see how they have abused. For the last 4 years, they have abused President Trump, and the amount of abuse President Trump has taken is beyond despicable, actually. Nobody can stand up to that kind of abuse in a daily basis and moment by moment basis. And he exhibited actually tremendous amount of strength, in my mind, and courage with all this cloud hanging over his head, still delivering strongly against all the bureaucracy and the state dictators like China and Iran. We have seen that, whatever he has done so far. So yes, the saddest part for America is today big techs are controlling the politics. Unfortunately, what's happening is they're silencing us. And the way we started our conversation is silencing us for even talking about it. We don't know who is surveilling us. We don't know who is going to frame us for falsely accuse us of something that we were not part of. Today, Donald Trump has been accused for saying peacefully and patriotically walk
Yep.
up to Capitol. That was his quote. Actually, I've written down some of the quotes that I'd like to read for your audience. There's a
Yep.
quote from Kamala Harris. It says, "Protesters should not let up." Anaya Presley, the representative, the squad, they say, she said, there needs to be unrest in the streets. Chris Cuomo, CNN anchor, the
Yep.
brother of Governor Cuomo from New York, he says, who says protests have to be peaceful?
Sure.
We have the favorite one, Nancy Pelosi. She says, I just don't know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there should be. Then you have the favorite Maxine Waters. She mentioned, I say, we knock off Trump and then go after Pence. We have the power. That was spoken on September 17, 2018. You talk about violence, you talk about inciting violence, and compare that to what Donald Trump said. Go home with
Yep.
love and in peace. Remember this day forever. How is that the leftist media, the leftist mouthpieces have the courage and ability and platform to
Yep.
push propaganda? So I don't call them as a media at all at this point. They're propaganda machines.
Absolutely right. Well, actually, just let me share. I'm going to play a short video which really emphasizes the point that you've just made. So we can just bring up, because the double standard it's incredible, Purnima. It's amazing. Listen to this if we can. Hopefully play.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized right up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look, as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
So, Purnima, the entirely, mainly peaceful, loving Democrats revealed and their media henchmen for exactly what they are. I mean, you know, I mean, that's just a snip of some of the stuff that's gone on for 4 years, basically. And it's horrendous. You know, they get away with all of that. Trump calls for peace, and Trump is banned by Twitter for calling for peace. Did you see, Purnima? It was the tweet that he did where he said he wouldn't attend the inauguration. that was Twitter chose to interpret that as, oh, he could be calling for incitement. I mean, I'm not even sure Biden will attend because he's so forgetful. He might take a lid that day. But there we see the double standard, doesn't it? That's the left. They can do what they want, say what they want. Purnima, you try and do that, you will be removed straight away.
Absolutely. The hypocrisy is they don't have any bottom at all. So I don't even call it as a double standard. I call it as the lowest of the low and hypocrites. If you call Donald Trump Nazi and fascist and dictator, he might be the first dictator who got shut down and banned by a big tech of the same country. And here is the irony of it. Yesterday I was listening to Mike Pompeo's speech on VOA. VOA, which is Voice of America, is actually government funded machine, propaganda machine, and whatever it is, America. They're supposed to talk about America, right?
Yep.
VOA was saying that Mike Pompeo's speech to be not actually as broadcasted at all.
Yes.
I was surprised. The Donald Trump actually paid, right? The US government is paying you, and Donald Trump is our president. The last 4 years, you have canceled him, and you constantly, brutally demonized him, shamed him, insulted him, harassed him. And you today, you have 10 more days left. You're talking about VOA should not be running Pompeo's speech because he's Secretary of State.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It's absolutely mad. I mean, the other thing, Purnima, is they're calling for him to be impeached. I mean, Pelosi, presumably in one of those moments where she's not entirely drunk, has been able to sober up long enough to call for the impeachment of the president. And the media think it's a great thing. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that they could succeed? What do you think about this alleged impeachment that they're trying to do?
So there's a couple things that I think it's quite destructive, as you understand. You have, if at all, they literally succeeds to put Biden in the seat, you have exactly 11 days, less than 8 days now, actually. In such case, if somebody wants to impeach the president, you're talking about setting a precedent which is going to divide this country forever. It's no longer uniting and bringing people together. The fake narrative that Joe Biden tried to push of uniting people, it's no longer uniting people. It is literally a revolutionary movement. I see 1776 is repeating once again. It's going to be us versus them. Meaning, Trump supporters, I'm a Trump supporter. I have campaigned for him. I've supported him because of what he did for the country, because of what he means for the country. And he has always put America first agenda. That doesn't mean he brought down other countries, but fair trades and dictatorial, for over the years, America was abused. So he was containing those kind of issues for foreign policies, trades, and etc., which was great. But what is happening today, for 4 years, these leftist goons have described us as uneducated, described us as a poor America, described us as Nazis and fascists. So today, you talking about Capitol building and unrest in the Capitol building by Trump supporters or quote unquote Trump stars. When the BLM, the rioters, were not labeled as a rioters and looters and burners. How dare you talk about inciting violence? We are not the one who burnt the country for the last 4 years, and especially for the last 8-10 months when BLM started their goon activities.
Go ahead.
It's saddest that they are able to turn the same kind of narrative and propaganda and use it against us to falsely accuse us. And I'm pretty sure what happened on January 6th in Capitol, with all the evidences, everything that we know at this point, and the leftist behavior, you can analyze and also put an analogy together. This never a patriot will use America's flag to beat somebody. We are not the one who burnt America's flag. The leftists are burning America's flag. They are the one who's burning Christian Bible. We have not done that. So telling that somebody with the American flag and pole is actually breaking windows and glasses, it's hard for me to believe that we have patriots or Trump supporters who will do that, because they are not going to use this kind of stuff.
Well, actually, we've got another short little video clip which wonderfully follows on, because the events at the Capitol building, Purnima, have been remorselessly used by big tech, by big media, and indeed even by big corporations to demonize Trump supporters. But if we play this little clip, things aren't always the way they appear. So can we just have the next clip, please, from the Capitol building? Just listen to this, Purnima.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
That ain't a riot, what we're seeing right now.
Any reasonable person would say we shouldn't be destroying other people's property, but these are not reasonable times.
And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do not get it twisted and think that, oh, this is something that has never happened before, and then this is so terrible, and where are we, and these savages and all of that. This is how this country was started.
People get mad and people get sick of it. People are risking COVID to explain to this country that we're fed up.
And there we have it, a lovely juxtaposition of what happened in the Capitol. And as I'm sure you guessed, Purnima, these were media comments during the BLM riots of last summer, where the media, again, were quite on board, quite happy, quite appreciative of the fiery, if mainly peaceful riots. And then you would have thought that, you know, genocide was being committed on the Capitol. It's the hypocrisy of all these elements, isn't it? Led by the media.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to bring one thing for your audience. It's very easy for somebody to camouflage and look like there's Trump supporter. You put on a red hat with a MAGA in here and take a Trump flag or America's flag and go mingle in the protests and suddenly actually start doing all kinds of silly things. And we also saw videos in social media. The Trump MAGA supporters are actually pulling down protesters who were being violent. And we also saw videos where we saw the police officers were taking shots, selfie shots with the rioters, as well as were letting them in. And I believe there are arrests are getting happening right now. And the police chief just resigned. I think Sun already resigned. His last day is going to be 16th. But one thing for your audience to understand, I've written down 6 times in the past Capitol building was attacked, and most of them were leftist bombings. And one critical one is quite important for us. 1983 November 7th, there was a unrest by leftist group called Resistance Conspiracy. It was actually something to do with whether underground organization connected to May 19th communist organization, and they're also known by Armed Resistance Unit and the Red Guerrilla Resistance and the Revolutionary Fighting Group. There are 4.5 years of investigation led to 6 arrests. 2 of them were given prison sentences, and 3 of them, the charges were all dropped. And 2 of them, especially speaking about Linda Evans and Susan Rosenberg. They were given prison sentences. I believe Susan had 58 years, and both Linda and Susan only served 16 years.
Yeah.
Now, here is the important and quite interesting information. Susan Rosenberg and Linda Evans, both of them were pardoned by Mr. Bill Clinton on the last day of his office. So the entire thing connects back to Clinton's once again. So I am very, very concerned about what do they have, what crimes they have committed, and how come everybody who's connected to them are always evading the punishments. So interestingly, Susan also is the leader in BLM. Now, one quick thing is we have found evidences of BLM leader John Sullivan. He's from Utah, Insurrection USA, I suppose. He was found in the protest. So you tell me that Trump supporters are capable of burning, looting, and riots, even in the Capitol, and we see now evidences of BLM coming, and they are calling us, the Trump supporters, as the rioters and terrorists when they are the one who's bombing the Capitol.
I think it's called projection. It's what the left do. They do it on social media because they call us Nazis, they call us hate mongers, they give us all these names. What they're talking about, Purnima, is themselves. They are the hate mongers. They are the new fascists. I mean, that's just, to my mind, indisputable. But you're right. I mean, the Clinton sort of dynasty, there's so much evil started then and has continued. And another point, just to add to what you said, it's remarkable the number of people around the Clintons who strangely died. We can't really but speculate why. We couldn't possibly venture an opinion, other than a lot of them end up dying, especially if they become a bit awkward. So anyway, I mean, Clintons are, the thing is, Clinton's gone to a degree, but I guess the body behind them, which was also the body behind Obama, that's kind of what's behind Biden, or is it? So here's my question for you. Do you think this Biden, because it's going to be a Biden administration, there's not going to be, I'm afraid, I don't believe, a last-minute salvation. It's going to be Biden. Do you think the Biden administration is going to be more like the Obama one, or do you think it's because it will become more radical, more Kamala Harris-ish? Which direction do you think it's going to take over the next 2 to 4 years?
See, Squad today have 2 more persons in their group, right? It's no longer a 4-people group. It's a 6-people group. Kamala Harris is a radical leftist. And as we know, from a capability perspective, from a ability of a 78-year-old almost, Biden is not capable of making one coherent sentence. Now, this is the aging problem, right? Now you talk about national security, counterterrorism, Iran nuclear weapons, or Chinese imperialism. He probably is not in a position to manage it. The reason he was probably running, an entire thing went to support Biden, was probably making sure that they themselves are not implicated, because everybody is connected in this entire DNC and Hillary Clinton and Obama and Biden's.
Yep.
So it is going to be radical left. For the past 4 years, I was looking, it is interesting, you should do that too. I was looking at Pompeo's Twitter for the last just few days. He starts his day with America First image. And then he talks about several things that happened in the past 4 years. You see the strength the Trump administration has showed against Chinese aggression, whether it is human rights violations, whether it is child labor, whether it's a trafficking, drug trafficking, and etc. It is all he has shown that, including Iranian counter-terrorism and Chinese Belt and Road initiatives. They even took on UN, the organizations of UNHRC, UNESCO, and WHO, which has a direct connection with Chinese coronavirus. And 1 year after, America, the WHO was not able to get into Wuhan. So we don't know what's going to happen over there.
Yep.
The investigation is going to be just for the namesake, and there's probably they're not going to find anything. It's just going to be cover up anyway. So to answer your question, it is going to be Kamala Harris who's going to be riding on Biden. That's exactly their quote was, riding with Biden, right? So I personally believe that it is going to be Kamala show, and Kamala is a radical leftist Obama 2.0. There's no doubt, there is no double thought about it, that Kamala Harris is going to run the show, and it's going to be radical leftist with a Green New Deal, which is what Kamala's babies are, and making sure Pakistan gets embassy here, and X amount of taxpayers dollars goes to Pakistan. It's $25 million is not good enough. So it's all radical countries, the socialist and communist countries are going to benefit. Biden and Hunter Biden, like folks, and Hillary Clinton's are going to benefit. People like us who are fighting for the country and democracy are going to shut down. We are going to be shamed. We're going to be killed, murdered, vanished, just like Jack Ma was. Just 2 months ago, Jack Ma was just vanished now, just because he wanted a reform in China. He's no longer there. So this is coming to us. They are already preparing a list of Trump supporters, how to shame, how to harass us. Even Brandon, CIA Director Brandon, he is talking about literally deplatforming us and shaming us and entirely cleaning us. We're talking about genocide over here. We're talking about cleansing over here. So don't be surprised if we are shut down and our existence online is gone.
But here's the thing, Purnima. The reality is that I think the total number of people who voted for Donald Trump was, I think it was 84 million, wasn't it? So
87 million was his Twitter follower, 75 million who voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah. So 75 million is a lot of people. How do you close down 75 million people? How do you do that? And do you think there's a danger that if the left, the progressive left, push hard enough, do you think they're going to get a response back? Because I don't see how you can shut down 4 million people without consequences. And I don't want to see violence. I want to see peace. But if you just say 74 million people just, we'll silence you, we'll shut you down, things aren't going to work out too good, are they?
Oh, I'll tell you why, and it's going to work out. It worked out in India. 74 years of freedom. We were ruled by dynasties, so-called fake Gandhis. And it was ruled by Communist Party of India Marxist as well as Congress Party. They're both leftist. And today, all radical left combined against the BJP, which is the Nationalist Party.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 1.38 billion people today. 80% is Hindus, 14% is Muslims. Now you're talking about a number, 2011 census number. This number is changed now.
Yeah.
They did silence Hindus for 74 years, very strategically, methodically, through education, media, making sure your communication is controlled. So they were able to do it for 1.38 billion people. I'm talking about Hindus, 800 plus million people we're talking about. So in the United States, you have only 330 million people. We're talking about 75 million people who has voted for Donald Trump. They are trying to erase us. They're trying to shame us. They are coming after our businesses. They're coming after our families. They're going to come and slaughter us. You're not going to hear about it. It's going to happen exactly like what happens in Iran or China. So definitely that is doable when you have state media, when you have state goons. And when you have big techs like that today, they are working as an agent of Democratic Party, and you have the media like Chris Cuomo's and MSNBC's Joy Villa, they're working as the mouthpiece of Democrat Party and DNC's propaganda. That's absolutely possible. You have the judiciary who's not taking the cases that's coming to them because they're afraid, and they have been. I'm pretty sure they have been afraid. They're threatened. They have been shamed. They're afraid of their position. They're afraid of taking the cases, so they're going to lose their family. So they don't want to risk. So that is doable. We have seen that over and over again, even in a largest democracy in India. We have seen this kind of shutting down voices. As I told you in the onset of our conversation, my dad would tell me, do not talk. You don't know who's listening to you. Even the walls have ears. And you are right. And that's exactly what I've seen recently in Hong Kong too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is that one of the great things about Donald Trump was he stood against China. And I think you and I would agree, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this would agree with the view that China is the single biggest threat we face in the single biggest global threat, much more of a threat than COVID-19. However, Biden seems to be quite well inclined towards China, and his son is even more inclined towards China. And of course, that then has regional issues. Like, for example, talking about India, no doubt in my mind that Biden will become quite an enemy, I think, of Prime Minister Modi in India. He will support Pakistan, that failed terrorist state. So these are the things. There's global consequences, isn't there? It doesn't just end within the boundaries of the states. It's going to affect the world, Purnima, isn't it?
Absolutely. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Rep. Pramila Jayapal, Ro Khanna, they've all stood against India and India's sovereignty, along with they stood with Pakistan and Kashmir. They say the Kashmir, they want to stand with Kashmir, but they forget that their Kashmir is part of India, and this matter is India's internal matter. And today, India has a very strong leadership of Modi and BJP, which is what they're afraid of. They're thinking that Modi is already have done tremendous amount of work cleaning up 74 years of mess. And they don't want it. They want to make sure that Kashmir is totally taken over, and POK, which is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, for the last 74 years, they want to occupy it strategically and systematically changed the demographics over here. Throughout, 500,000 to 700,000 Kashmiri Hindu Pandits from there, and the atrocities that these Hindu people went through is beyond imagination. I cannot express the horrid situations these Hindus have gone through, but none of these Hindu Pandits have become a terrorist to take revenge. They are going through legal challenges, and look at the issue. Look at the sufferings they have gone through.
Well, I remember.
It's definitely Biden and Kamala, and their leftist agenda is going to be with Pakistan and China and Iran, and don't forget Turkey.
Here's a question for you, Purnima. What do you? I mean, I'll be honest. I find the GOP. I've been incredible. I mean, I wasn't that. I've been very disappointed. Very disappointed. Their lack of support for President Trump, those elected members, in both the Senate and in the House, have their cards. They're craven. They didn't stand by the president. Mitch McConnell. Lindsey Graham, all these guys. So my question is this: do you think the GOP will continue to have the support of the MAGA movement, or do you think the MAGA movement might spin off into a different organization or party even? What do you think?
Here is my thoughts on this. GOP, I'm very disappointed with GOP. They have caved in to the pressure. They couldn't stand for the American sovereignty to save this country from the hands of goons, the leftist goons.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed of this kind of leaders who caves in because of some threats. If you're not able to handle the threats, you shouldn't be in the public position. You should be taking the responsibility of jurisdiction and certain areas. So there is a huge movement right now for Trump. This, I'm seeing messages coming for Patriot Party, and I'm pretty sure if the Patriot Party's demands are not met, it's going to spin into a third party for sure. Now the question is how GOP is going to handle this pressure. They think they unfortunately thought that they had GOP leaderships without Trump, but they forgot one thing. Without Trump, GOP had no say at all. If Trump didn't win, GOP was dead long ago.
Yeah.
Trump brought that fighting spirit. Trump brought the America First agenda. And if you look at Pompeo's tweets, he regularly talks about leading from the front. And he talks about democracy. He also talks about effective multilateralism, meaning it's when you say America First, it doesn't mean you are bringing down other countries. It means that the deals that you are making is fair for all the countries. The Green New Deal, the climate change, the Paris Accord that these leftist parties are going to push next. It's going to take out millions of jobs from this country. We need to understand where GOP stands today. And based on their flip-flopping nature, we already know they are not for the people. We already know they didn't stand with President Trump. So we don't have to give them another 2 years and 4 years to see what they do. We already saw their past actions. The 75 million who has been shunned today, who has not gotten any kind of support from the GOP for an audit, even an audit, they couldn't make it happen.
I saw that,
So we asked for fair election, we didn't get. We asked for an audit, we didn't get. Now you talk about supporting GOP. I believe these people who are being falsely accused of doing wrongdoings and going to be falsely accused of, they're going to frame us, literally. We're not going to take it lying down. I'm sure the frustration I am bringing to you today, millions of us are feeling the same thing. We feel betrayed. We feel let down. We also feel that our GOP leadership had no manhood at all.
And actually, folks, what Purnima said, that is, you've just heard, that is the voice of many, many Americans. So doesn't matter what you see on the BBC here in the UK or CNN and all the other fake news. I think Purnima eloquently speaks up on behalf of many millions of American people. They're not going to, they know that the GOP will continue to betray them. I mean, it was Trump who revived the GOP, and what was their what was their thanks to him? They stabbed him in the back, and I'm sure you saw the tweet that President Trump put out a couple of days before he was finally taken down off that most hateful channel, Twitter, when he criticized Mike Pence, the vice president, Purnima, for not having the courage, the guts to do that which was right. And Mike Pence failed as well. He's another one of these spineless rhinos, isn't he?
Well, I think, literally I can tell you Graham and McConnell and Pence, they just didn't show the courage we wanted to see. Now, we don't have any issues of president, any president-elect to take a stand. We don't have any issues with that. But the issue that I see is quite problematic here is that when you have 75 million voters who is for Donald Trump and are feeling that this election was not conducted right, you must do an audit, and you didn't give them that options and the support for that, and you showed a tremendous amount of hatred, constantly flip-flopping your votes, the stimulus package and standing with president or not. To me, that's not leadership at all. You see, to me, that's literally bowing down in front of a leftist mob. They wanted you to do something and you did, and you forgot the constituency that you were supposed to be representing. So many people, many representatives caved into this, and to us, to the Donald Trump voters, supporters who felt his accomplishments are mountain high, who felt that he stood for the country, he felt he also brought to the mainstream what America means, and he also stood for religious freedom. He's a Christian and I'm Hindu. I mean, if you talk from a broader perspective, why would I even support him? But that's not who he is. He stood for, and his administration stood for religious freedom. His administration stood for freedom in general. You know, you live and let live too. So what's happening today? We feel GOP is so divided within themselves. They're trying to make sure they have the power, and the only way they can have power, if at all, if they start buttering the Democrat and leftist Democrat Party. To us, that's not how it's supposed to be. GOP is the party who released slavery. They are the party who actually gave the slaves voting right. They are the party who gave the women the voting right. So to me, from there to today, I feel completely betrayed. And when people say GOP is undiversified, GOP is white supremacist, it just hurts me, because they couldn't actually talk about what the party means and what the party even did for the people like us, the colored people, quote unquote. The first senator, first House representative, which is colored, black, Hispanic, is from GOP. So how would you say GOP is wrong? So to me, over the years, it all became like a criminal house where everybody wanted to keep their position. McConnell's wife, Miss Elaine Chao, she is a Chinese. I believe she's a daughter of a oligarch in China. So all the connections are coming out now. You know, the Eric Swalwell, he was not taken down from his and he was infiltrated. Chinese spy was. So to me, this is what we have seen. You can literally put a part together what's going to come. Now, Democrats have the House, they have the Senate, they are taking the executive leadership. You can guarantee people like us are going to be shut down. And when we are falsely accused and we're falsely framed, we are not going to just shut down and stay quiet. There has to be some casualty. And I'm sure this is going to happen. They're going to literally, vanish us from the face of the earth. There's going to be things happening like that. And when it does, I'm sure some people are going to rise above this. And it's coming.
Well, certainly, Purnima, the MAGA patriots are certainly being digitally vanished. And obviously, most particularly, I guess, on Twitter, because it wasn't just President Trump who was removed from the platform. I understand that something in 24 hours on Saturday night or whatever, 24 million conservative and MAGA accounts were removed from Twitter. And Facebook's, has also borne down on patriots. Actually, it's interesting because just on this topic of Facebook, on which we are broadcasting, I actually put up a little meme earlier today, which was quotes from, you mentioned them earlier, Purnima, you know, some of those Democrat demagogues and their hypocrisy from last year. I put that up, and with backgrounds of, you know, Kenosha burning, Oregon, Portland burning. I put a little sort of fun meme up. Within about 10 seconds, this has been fact checked, and this does not represent context is missing. So
fact check by whom? And that is Vance and fought for a legal case and won too. It's coming across, and we already know what the truth is. Fact checkers are Democrat mouthpieces. So and BLM activists and Antifa. So the entire supply chain, the ecosystem of the Democrats are so fireproof right now that a conservative like us, especially somebody who's not a Christian, Hindus, are literally getting shut down in a broader scale. So I believe yesterday when I was looking at the news, Facebook lost $34 billion market cap.
Great to see.
It's going to come down. And then one of the positive news out of it I saw last night was North Idaho, I suppose, banned Facebook and Twitter because they are being partial. So to me, if the most of the Republican states and Republican counties and cities, if they start doing that, that's a progress. That will be a great aftermath for Twitter's and Facebook's like. So to me, it's more than that. Twitter and Facebook, they are just digital oligarchs. That's okay. But what is coming beyond that is further going to cause tremendous amount of unrest in the streets. Why? Because it's not just Twitter or YouTube or Facebook. They are actually telling the organizations not to hire Trump supporters. You have seen Kylie McEnany. They are trying that kind of tricks. So it's not business. I run a non-profit over here. They ran after me. They are going to ruin me, ruin my non-profit, ruin my reputation and my family. So when I say that they're going to vanish us, look at what happened to Jack Ma. He was a billionaire from scratch. They have completely vanished him, and CCP China is trying to dismantle his fort, literally speaking.
Well, you see, Purnima, this is what I agree with you. The thing that worries me most is that what we're actually seeing being put in place is essentially something that looks very like Chinese techno-communism. So as long as you go along with the CCP in China, do what they say and, you know, behave yourself, then they will favor you. And if you dare step out of line, they will crush you. And that's exactly what's happening at the moment. That's what's happening. That's what's coming to the US with a vengeance, isn't it? It's going to be, I think, you know, techno-communism is what I call it.
Definitely. You see, they have social score or something in China.
Yes.
And they are literally followed facial recognition, their behavior. Based on the behavior, they get social recognition. This is coming over here because if you behave, you will be promoted. If you don't behave and don't succumb to their agenda, you will be vanished. So that's what's going to happen. At the end of the day, the murders, the scandalous atrocities against us is going to happen, and this is the ultimate price America has to pay. And I think the patriots are going to be willing to pay, and I think we're not going to take the drama of GOP that they showed over the last few months. We've extremely disappointed their flip-flopping drama. It's not going to work out well. But again, if GOP needs to survive, they have to understand where they have failed and how they have not fought for their people and for their country, and how they also were part of the democratic agenda for selling the country.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, Purnima, the problem is, I think the GOP is irredeemable. I hate to tell you. I think they have failed. They'll keep failing. What they'll do is they'll make noises to get to the midterms and try and get votes, and ultimately they will keep selling out to the Democrat agenda. The thing is, the Democrats haven't changed their agenda. They're still radicals. I mean, they got, as you say, with Harris and her ilk, the most radical ever. With an increased squad, that's going to get even worse. So the Democrats they just swing further left. And instead of the GOP supporting the MAGA agenda, the Trump agenda, what have they done? They've followed the Democrats. So I find the GOP a complete and utter disgrace. I looked at the number of votes, the votes in the House, and there was only about half a dozen people actually have voted against, one of the motions to have an inquiry. So I don't know. I think the GOP's day is done, but they're going to be in power for X amount of time, and it's profoundly disturbing. We're getting near the end of the show, so somebody said to me, David, have we got any good news? Tell us what's positive. Purnima, over to you. Tell us something good that's going to happen.
See, I think Trump is an incredible man. Okay, I'm not going to character assassinate any politicians. Politicians means, of course, you are going to be supporting your constituency, and as well as you'll have some kind of focus as to what you want to do. This gentleman had been saying the same thing for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Right? He hasn't changed. He saw the business world very closely. He saw politics and politicians very closely, including Hillary Clinton. So today when he ran, he exactly knew what his agenda for the country was. He saw the country being abused by communists and Islamists, and he also made sure he put America first, whether it's for jobs, whether it's for immigration, whether it's for counterterrorism, or whether it is for trades, and etc. So he pulled himself off from dubious deals, whether it's INF Treaty or he reformed NATO, Paris Accord, he pulled himself off. He made sure Israel, Jerusalem has his embassy. So many things he has done overall, including India. In India's defense trade is now to $20 billion with all kinds of military assistance and sales, which was not existent by the time it was 2014 or 2016 or so. So to me, this man knew exactly what he was putting, where he was putting his feet onto, and he is not going anywhere. Just because he has been thrown off and ousted by the leftist goon, don't think he's gone anywhere. My feeling is that as long as Donald Trump is alive, he's going to talk for America. He's going to put America first agenda. And you have 75 million patriots with him as well. Remember that. Secondly, I believe it's not just 75 million. I believe it is much more than that, because you see the fraud that has happened to reduced number of votes and increased number of votes somewhere else. We heard about the switches and glitches. So to me, I think we have tremendous amount of force that Donald Trump has created. He is not going anywhere. He has brought the movement of America first, and people like us, you will see nationalists, patriots, people like us are going to defend this country, and hopefully we can also make some reforms.
Well, I think just to sort of finish off, Purnima, lots of, not just in the States, but around the world, here in the UK, and I believe, in other places like Australia and whatnot, and India, President Trump is much admired. And people appreciate all that he's done. And we were all 100% behind his attempt to get in for a second term. But I think the forces against him, which we are not allowed to go into detail on, but those forces were so great. This time he couldn't quite make it. But let's put confidence in Donald J. Trump and the team around him. and all the great patriots and people like yourself, Purnima, who I've got huge confidence in. Doesn't matter. I mean, Hindus, Christians, atheists, it shouldn't matter. We all ultimately support the values of the MAGA movement and the things that says, because those are universal values. So, Purnima, I want to thank you very much for being with me tonight.
One quick comment for your audience. Hindus, no matter where they went, whichever part of the world they went, they were never violent, and we don't support violence at all. But what we support is, if you are constantly poking us, how long can we stay quiet? The defense mechanism has to bust sometime. So that's what you are seeing in the patriot movement over here. But I'm pretty sure nobody is violent, and we have not shown any violent activities over here for the last 8-10 months. So telling us and labeling us as a terrorist and violent people is absolutely wrong. And that's the message the world needs to see.
Well, that's one reason why I'm so proud to stand with my Indian and Hindu friends. They are amongst the best. They are amongst the best people that walk this planet. So, Purnima, thank you very much, folks. We're gonna go now. Before we go, just to let you know, I'll be back on Thursday night. On Thursday night, I've got the leader of the For Britain Party, Anne-Marie Waters, on. So I hope you will come along on Thursday night, 8 p.m. Be here on time. And in the meantime, it's good night from me, good night from Purnima, and catch you then. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good night.